So in today's video, we're going to look at patching drywall, but we're going to focus on the California patch. So we're going to be cutting this out and putting a California patch in this location, and we're going to do that, and we're going to go over it in detail so you really understand how to do the California patch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a template. A template could be anything. It could be a piece of wood that I have here. It can be a piece of drywall, whatever you have that's a little bit larger than the hole. And you'll see when we look at the backside of the wall why it's important to have something larger. But in this case, I've already gone around this, but I've stayed really tight to the template that I'm using. In actuality, with a California patch, it's better to go about 1/4 of an inch wider than the patch itself. And so I'm using this contractor's pencil to make my lines a little bit on the outside. The reason I'm going to the outside of the template is that I want a little space between the drywall itself, the drywall on the wall, and the drywall that's part of my patch, so that I can get some damp drywall mud in between there, squeezing in between, so when that hardens and dries, it all becomes solid and part of the wall. If they're touching, I can't get any mud in there, and I just don't get that connection. Today, to cut this out, I'm going to use a multi-tool. This is my favorite for cutting drywall. It does throw out a little bit of dust. I start real slow, kind of bury it in 1/4, and then just cut across. And I try not to sink that blade any more than 1/2 inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch, because I don't want to be hitting any pipes or any Romex. Once I've gone from side to side, then I start in a corner and I just start real slow. Okay, so now the hole's cut, and if you look at this, my wood goes in here, but I got a little play going up and down and sideways, right? That's exactly what we want. And we want our patch to be just this side so that when you put it in here, it does the same thing. Probably the most difficult part of doing a California patch is cutting out the patch, because it's a little confusing. But what we're going to do is we're going to start on the face side of our patch. If you look at drywall, the light colored side is the front. Look at the back side, it's pretty easy to tell that that's the back side, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to take a measurement of our template. Remember, we already put this up against the wall and we cut it out a little bit bigger. So it's 3.5 by 6 inches. And so I want it to be 2 inches larger in both directions. So in 6 inches, I add 2, I'm going to go 8 here. And I'll make a couple marks at 8 inches to help me draw a line. And remember, I'm 3.5 wide on my 2x4, so I'm going to add 2 inches to that, so 5.5. And once again, 2 marks, right? Then I'm going to find an official straight edge. A little bit better. If you look at this, I'm 1 inch larger in both directions than my template. So now I'm going to use a utility knife and I'm going to cut this open. So my goal is that I'm going to cut this patch out, and if I didn't want to disturb all this, I could take my multi-tool and just cut along the line, but this is going to be a little easier. I'm going to cut from one end all the way across my line, but I'm going to keep going all the way to the other side of this board, because I'm probably not going to use this end anyways. And I'll break that. And I'm going to run my knife in this crease. I'm going to fold it over, run it in the crease. Set this aside. Now I've just got this little line in the short direction. At this point, my patch material is bigger than my template, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over to the back side now. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my pencil and draw a line around it that allows for that inch, and then I'm going to slide it to the end and extend that line to the end. Slide it to the edge, same thing. So if you look at this pattern, that tells us which direction to cut to create the plumber's patch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut from this side to this side of this patch. And I don't feel very stable on the corner of this cart, so I'm going to give myself a little better working surface. And I'm going to cut very shallow. It doesn't have to be very deep. And I'm going to do that all the way around. Then I'm going to make a second pass just to make it a little deeper. So I've got my template here in the center, and I'm just going to break this away and roll the drywall off of the paper. Roll the gypsum off the paper. So what that does is it gives me a drywall patch on the back side that's exactly the size of my template. But on the front side, I have this paper that will overlap the hole and be my tape. But it's much easier to tape when you only have one side of the tape that's higher than the face of the drywall. So that's why this patch really works to make it easier to use. One more quick trick is I'm going to take a screw and I'm going to put, it's more like a spike, but it's a screw. And this is going to be my handle, and you'll see how that helps me out here in a second. I want to check to make sure that the patch goes in real easy, and there's just a little bit of play, and it's perfect. So now we're going to add some mud to our patch, and the reason I put this screw in is it gives you a handle for a number of different activities here. So I'm going to hang on to that screw for a bit, and I'm going to lay a big, heavy bead of mud all the way around this. And we're going to recover a lot of that as we squeeze it out, but you've got to mix enough so that it goes all the way around the entire patch. And it doesn't have to hit all the paper, because when you put this into the wall, that's going to crush this mud way over to the edge. So with this amount, you've got plenty. But I want you to take a close look at how much I put in there. Really loaded it up. Okay? So this is where this screw that I put in, and I put it in one that's a little bit large. You could use a small drywall screw. But this really comes in handy because I can push this in, and I have the ability to push it in and pull it out depending on what I need. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hold the screw, and I'm going to pull it out flush with the side of my knife. As I am pushing in on the patch, I'm holding the screw so that the drywall itself doesn't go too far in. Okay, at this point that looks a little bit messy, so I'm just going to go over the top of it and run a bead all the way around it. Do a little float. And then pull my screw out a little bit, clean this off. So now we're going to let that dry up for a little while and become part of the wall, because remember, we left that gap in that material, and now that soft drywall compound is going to bond to the wall and to our patch. So here we are on the back side of the wall where we just did the patch. You can see the 3 holes, and what's really important about the California patch and what it does is that we left a gap between the patch material, which is in the center, and the drywall wall itself. The reason for that is it allows our drywall compound to squeeze in between that joint of the wall itself and the patch. Why is that important, you ask? Well, what it is that the gypsum that's in the drywall compound becomes part of the gypsum that's part of the drywall, and it becomes one again. So this is the closest patch in my mind to a solid wall again. We don't have a complete connection of paper on the backside, but the rest of it is very well adhered. Tomorrow, I'll be able to knock on this patch and it's going to sound just like this wall. Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you would like to check out our products, click on the link below in the description for easy protection. And to check out our other videos, please click on the link up here.